Yeah, hello. Welcome back to the Gleam fishing channel. Lovely day here in Nelson, but chilly, 6 degrees this morning, but lovely blue sky. So, hey, today we're very fortunate to have Pete Connolly or Peter Connolly from the well-known fishing Connolly family. And yeah, so I thought we'll do a bit of an introduction and take you through, no doubt, what's been a really amazing, interesting, fishing career. So, thanks, Pete, and welcome.
Thank you, Darren. A privilege to come down on the mighty Gleam. Similar size to the boat that I mostly started my fishing career on. Green Pastures was, I think, 60 feet, come out from Scotland. So, yeah, this is where it all started for everyone.
Absolutely, and while we're on that topic, Pete, yeah, I mean, when did you start? How did you start? I know what you're doing now, and we'll get to that. But do you want to give us a bit of a timeline of when did Peter Connolly discover that fishing was okay, and I'm going to earn money from this, and let's get into it. So,
Well, I don't know. Obviously, our dad, Roy Connolly, wasn't a fisherman, which everyone thinks he was because of the Michael, Roger, Peter fishing. We've all been fishermen. Started at an early age. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but when you were little, I used to go with my mum to the butcher's, and the butcher would say, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And I'd look up and go, "I'm going to be a fisherman." And I don't know where it came from, Darren, but that's all I ever wanted to do. And, it was fishing down the wharf at a later date, the late teens, making long lines, fishing off the beach, catching snapper with Michael Gibbons, that you'll have to get on here as well, and selling them to my dad's workmates for a few bucks for a bit of cash, and doing trips on the Sea Lord 2 with Michael. He was the skipper at the time, going out in the school holidays, going out for week-long trips. But my passion was to go fishing. I was never a great academic at school, which later on I could explain why. And 1976, I got an opportunity to go to sea on the Green Pastures with Alistair Robinson, R.I.P. Alistair. And I went out, and I'll never forget the very first trip I did. I was out on the corridor, which you'll know well, catching flounders. Well, I never, ever wanted to see another flounder in my life. I remember washing them with my feet, having to stack them a special way. And, I was about 70 kilos wringing wet and trying to hand them down into the hold and bits and pieces. When I sailed, I didn't like any vegetables. But by the time I got home, I loved every one of them because that's all you got to eat with some meat, mate. So it was a culture shock. I used to get $60 a trip and take home all the fish I could eat. All my mates were on apprenticeships ranging from $20 to $30 a week. So I was a very rich man. And, it just grew on me. And at no time did I want to ever stop. And as I've said to other people in interviews, at a very early age, I realised that wheelhouse was the place I wanted to be because it was nice and warm. I did my time on the deck, don't you worry, mate. So, I went through the inshore fishery, worked on the Kotaku with Robert King Turner, another RIP, and, did the scallops, which you'd be very up with. And, so inshore fishing up until the early 80s was all I'd ever done, just going out in there and doing like inshore fishing. And yes, and then along came the Orange Roughy. And of course that changed the whole ball game. People were rushing to get tickets. That was the next journey that I went on. And, I spent a lot of time with the Donker family on the old Raymond 5. Another RIP, she's in Cook Strait. And, the change was immense. Like I said, we were all rushing out to get tickets. And Alistair Robinson had retired from fishing. He was at the Polytech, got me through my coastal skipper's ticket with much much learning and a $5 bet on about the third attempt.
Much pain and head scratching and sleepless nights. I remember that well.
That's what I was alluding back to you, was that, at school was eat your lunch and get home and go fishing or go down the beach. I mean, and I paid for it, because I knew what I needed to do in the exams, but it'd get to me and I'd fold, and I look back and say, well, I was a determined bugger. I never gave up, and I got them. And some of them took a long time to get, but I don't think it made me a lesser person who got a ticket in the first go. So yeah, I spent a bit of time on the Raymond 5 and obviously progressed up. I got my mate's ticket, and I was working on the Voyager at the time, and come home from Napier, got a phone call at, I think it was nearly 1 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, who's ringing me? And I rolled over, picked the phone up, and went, hello, and I was greeted with, Herb, do you want a job? And I go, yeah, is that you, Peter? And he goes, yeah. He says, do you want to be the skipper of the Raymond 5, but we'll change the name? I go, oh, yeah, that sounds good. I said, but I haven't got a deep sea skipper's ticket. Don't worry about that. I'll deal with that. Be down in the office at 8:30 and hand out the contracts. I thought, holy moly. And, I was just taken back. So trundled down to Amatil, seen Ken Atkinson, handed out the things, and that was the start. I took over running what was to become the Amatil Challenger. And obviously one of the most distinguished things was it was May, and he gives me this catch plan to go down the west coast and catch orange roughy. Everyone laughed. Oh, you won't catch orange roughy at this time of the year, it's too early. I took Roger, my brother, with me. He had a broken arm at the time, and he needed some sea time. So he came with me, and we went down to the Cook Canyon, and I said, well, good luck, perseverance, I don't know. But filled the boat up, brought it home. And everyone came down there, and I came back and went back again and filled it up. And that was my sort of first time as being fully in charge. I'd done relief trips on the Raymond 5 for Tim Stevenson when he was away. And that one of those trips in particular really stuck with me because Barry Gardner was roaring around up there on he had the Resolution or Recovery at the time. And he told me, he said, there's a mate of mine, he's a longline fisherman, and there's a hill out here, Pete. It's 36 miles off.
That's a gem, isn't it?
And I spent days looking. Every night we'd look, and we found it. And that was a coup de grace for us because the roughy still wasn't. It was a free for all. Well, not free for all, but it was open to anyone to catch the quota. It wasn't allocated to individuals or companies.
Pre-quota system, isn't it?
It was. So if there was 500 tonne, once it was caught, it was gone. We were lucky enough to get a couple of trips, which, gave me a bit of a badge of honour because I was pretty proud of myself to take the boat away while Tim was away on his honeymoon and managed to fill it up a couple of times. Unfortunately, I was found by the guy on the Voyager, which was a bit of a bugger. But, and obviously I spent some later years, I got off the Challenger, went as first mate with Chris Carey on the Explorer. And obviously that was my sort of introduction to a factory boat, and having a lot of people, processing the fish. Did a few trips with Chris, and then Cliff Hook decided he was going to go and run the fillet boat, and which became the Endeavour, of course. And I became the skipper of the Amatil Explorer. And really enjoyed my time on the Explorer, catching roughy. Down at Pusica, found some hills that no one knew about. It was an old paper chart given to them by one of the Norwegians who was looking for hoki at the time. And there was another little badge of honour for me to, it's, as a fisherman, it's quite exciting to find something new and actually get the reward of catching the fish off it. It's no different from a guy out in Tasman Bay finding a hot line on the flounders or the gurnard. It's the same for someone like me catching orange roughy or hoki, So it's a hunting mentality, and the reward is to catch a fish and obviously do good things with it. It's not to bring up a big bag and turn it into a pile of junk, because at the end of the day, you don't get paid for junk. You're going to get paid for quality fish. So I spent some memorable trips on the Explorer, met some funny people and had some really good trips. And some of the people are still in the industry. and some have gone on to do other things. I was in the process of, I applied for the Mariner, as it is known today, which is tied to the wharf over there. And unfortunately, I wasn't the successful recipient. I was told that I would be better off staying on the Explorer. And why I made the decision to apply for the job in the Mariner, we'd had our first daughter, Natasha, and it wasn't until she was about a bit over 4 we realised she was quite bad epileptic. She had grand moles, which are the top of the line. You can't get any worse. So I felt that I wanted to be home, or closer to home, in case things went pear-shaped for Marilyn. And I was talking to my brother Rog, and he said, "Oh, we're getting a couple of new freshers over at Sea Lords." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, the jobs will be gone, won't they?" And he goes, "No, there's still one open." So I said, "Oh well, I'll put a CV in and see how I go." And yeah, again, just out of the blue, I get a phone call from Sea Lords and Richard.
That 1 in the morning? Or
No, this was a bit more civil. It was in, 10 o'clock in the morning. Richard Wells rang me up. And, of course, it had to be very secret squirrel, as you can imagine. So he drove out to my place and we talked the contract, I signed the contract. And then, of course, the next big thing was to go down to Amateur and resign, which was a hard thing to do. I mean, Peter Talley had been very good to me. He gave me the opportunity to go fishing and be the skipper, help me all the way through, get him a ticker, and it was very, very supportive. And I mean, I'll give him the kudos that, a lot of what I've done has been through the help of him at Amatel, and got the job. And of course, I had to resign, and I'll never forget this, going down to Amatel and telling the girl at reception, I said, "Can you put Ken Atkinson's phone calls on hold?" Another R.I.P. Ken Atkinson, and showing our age.
Common theme, Pete.
Yeah, I know.
R.I.P.
And I think Ken was quite flabbergasted that I was resigning, and I don't think I got home and the phone was ringing, and I knew who it would be. And I dodged for a couple of days, and finally I had to, talk to him, and I told him, and, he accepted, and I started my journey at Sea Lords in 1995 on the Taimania, catching hoki in Cook Strait. And just to wind the clock back a bit, that fishery, I take a lot of honour out of that, because I fought very hard with Peter to go fishing in Cook Strait from information I got from Steve Linton, who was working on the James Cook at the time. And they were doing seismic and acoustic fishing, looking for fish in canyons. He gave me a whole lot of pictures and positions, and finally I convinced PT that I should go, and we went, and well, now you know the rest, mate. Eh?
Yeah, it's a very sustainable, ongoing hoki fishery.
It's a fishery that's been
been
going for years and years and years.
Yep. Was it the largest fishery in the world, closest to the capital city of a nation? So it's pretty incredible.
Dead right. I mean, you could look out on any given night, and there's anywhere between 10 and up to 40 boats at times. So I spent 7 good years on the Taimania, and then Richard and my brother came knocking again and said, "Would you like to run the Rehua?" I'd taken the Rehua out and did a couple of relief trips when Mike Baker needed a trip off. So the deal was I'd do 2 trips.
So just cutting in there, Pete, so what's the difference, just for the viewers, between the Taimania and the Rehua? So what's the difference between the two boats?
Right, so the Taimania is a 42-metre fresher. She was 2,700 horsepower. Obviously, we brought the fish up. Fish went down into the pounds, come along a belt. It was pre-iced, into cases, down, stacked, trying to be no more than 7 days, bring it back to the factory, filleted, and made into the products that they wanted. Well, the Rehua is a 66-metre factory trawler, capable of producing up to, say, 35 tonne of fillets a day. And you have anywhere from 40 to 45 crew, and that's inclusive of everyone. People working in the factory, your engineers, cooks, barter techs, skippers, mates, and such forth. So, the fish is processed, it's in a box, and it comes off the boat, and it's in a container, and it goes to anywhere in the world, States, UK, Australia, China, Japan, all over the world, the fish is going. So there's a huge mindset change. Time out here, you could rip the odd 40 or 50 up and tip it down the pounds and go home. Rehua, you do have those odd oopsies, but basically want that sort of 15 to 20 tonne.
Quality, isn't it?
Quality.
Lots of little toes rather than the odd large toe. Yeah,
it is. It is about the quality, and that's what will make you the bucks.
Yeah.
So the Rehua has been my home for 23 years. So I started there in 2002, and we had the boat set up for twin rigging, and man, did I have some adventures with the twin rig. Doors around doors, the clump around the doors, and many other things. And I learnt very quickly, you don't shoot with a bit of rudder on with the twin gear, because one net hops on top of the other.
So that's two nets, isn't it?
Yeah, two nets.
So towing two nets,
Yep.
not one. Yep.
And we had some horror stories. It was a big learning curve for us all. Was very successful. I think now really there's only the Atlantis and the Columbia and the Enterprise are pretty full time on it. I think the Granite's still got twin gear on it, but we've got the winch still on the Rehua, but we haven't been twin rigging I haven't for nearly 10 years. We've just built a bigger single trawl, which has the same surface area as the twin rig. We don't have the door spread, but we have 240 to 260, whereas they have maybe 380 to 410. But, we still catch a lot of fish, Darren. So, and I find it's a easier way than doing the twin rigging.
Yeah. Well, I guess less gear, less hassle, less things to go wrong, and probably what you're used to, Pete, isn't it? When you think of you come from the green pastures or something similar to the Gleam through to twin rigging on a 60-odd metre vessel, that's a hell of a journey. So, it's amazing.
It certainly is, mate. And I mean, you meet some characters on the way. Like I could sit here until midnight, talking to you about things that have happened and bits and pieces, So, yeah, it's like a family. And as I always say, it's like a rugby team, and there's no Richie McCaw. There is a skipper, there is a mate, but you're only as good as those people that are processing the fish, the engineers, the barter techs, even the cook and the galley girl. That everyone plays a part in this rugby team. And if it's a good rugby team is 15 players playing as a team, not as one or two individuals. And you see that, and that's how I've got people on the Rehua. Had a guy retire. His last trip was like my last trip. 30 years, near 26, 25 years on the Rehua. I got two others that are there that long, and so it says something about the boat and the company. So it's a good place to be.
It's the family, isn't it? And that's the thing that when you talk to a lot of people, like on the deep sea fishery that spend time at sea, a lot of people say, ship 6 or 12 weeks at sea, it's all so long. But the reality is you've got a family at sea and you've got a family at home. So either way, at home or work, you're with your mates and your family, aren't you?
Oh, definitely are. I mean, I've always said to the young guys, there is an element of if you're progressing up the ladder, and not to sound like, you're something special, but you do have to have that little bit of segregation. You've got to be able to leave the shop floor behind a bit, because if you go up into those roles as bosuns and second mates and first mates and even when you get to skipper, you just got to have that little bit of segregation. But as we're sitting here talking now, and you will know, Darren, you've worked at Sea Lords, that I can talk, and I like to interact with anyone on the boat. We've got 5 Filipinos this trip, 3 Caribas, and I like to talk to them. I like to know where they're from, what they've done, and bits and pieces. And I just treat them like the Kiwis that are sitting at the table with me as well. And I find that there is a big opening to get those people. They perform well. I take that I'm the skipper and they're the worker out. The first lot that ever came, they'd be standing at the end of the table waiting to take your plate and knife and fork. And I go, no. They don't happen here, boys. I do my own dishes and bits and pieces, And they're really funny now. They come into the mess and they go, "Thank you, Sea Lords," when they come in for lunch. And you can see the change in them, and they're happy. And it's rewarding if you can see that with those sort of people, and the reward to see young people do well. They take something from the fishing. They buy a house. They might buy 2 houses. Buy one, and just seeing people get reward for what they're doing is the thing.
I think that's important, because I know that when you talk to a lot of the younger ones, it's about the lifestyle. You're either working or you're home, and when you're home, you got money to spend. But a lot of couples and that are going on the boats when they're younger, and work pretty hard for 4 or 5 years, and then they've got a house, or they've got a very good deposit for a house, because you're at sea, you're being fed, you're given a bed, everything's available, and you're making money, and you can't spend it.
No.
I guess unless you've got a bit of a habit with online shopping, but
yeah,
it's a
well,
good way to save money.
As you know, you look at this boat here, and basically it's been brought into the 20th century. You didn't have VHFs, you had a single sideband radio. And I mean, you're going back to the Explorer, the highlight was Sunday night Radphones, because everyone could listen. And some people just didn't have the ability to, switch that mind thought off on my girlfriend's at home, and they'd say some really dumb things. And, we've got Wi-Fi, we've got Starlink now, we've got everything. Sky TV, they've got every amenity they have at home. Yeah. I mean,
probably better in some cases.
It could well be, and I mean, and like I say, the food and all that sort of stuff's of a very good quality. Yeah. So yeah, like you say, what they make is what they take. Yeah. And what they do with it, obviously, is their decision in life. But I one couple I know on the boat, they're not on my crew, they're on Jesse Gressman's crew, but 3 houses. Mm. And I mean, like in 10 years' time, they could walk away and that's me for fishing and do something else, because they may have well paid 1 or 2 of them off, and they've used that asset called fishing as their asset to progress their life and their future. Mm. And yeah, fishing is good if you have a mindset of what you want out of fishing and furthering yourself. If you're just going to go out and go fishing to make some bucks, back in mine in your days, it was a custom house. I can remember those days.
And the Tasman Tavern.
And the Tasman Tavern.
They did pretty well out of us in the earlier days, to be
honest.
honest.
Well, I mean, there was days there where, when I was real young, you'd go to Sea Lords, and on a Friday you get your cheque and straight round to the custom house and cash it. And, by Monday, sometimes there wasn't a lot left.
Yeah, I guess I've paid crew $4,000 or $5,000 in cheques on a Friday morning, and by 4 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, they want an advance to buy cigarettes for the next week's fishing. So, yeah, and of course, a lot of those, they're not the ones that have the 2 or 3 houses. So, can be a little bit easy come, easy go. But if you're a good saver and a good work ethic, it's absolutely the industry to be in, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I think there's more good stories than bad stories.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we see it at all times. And yeah, I mean, you see the characters of the fishing industry, and you're aware of as many as I am. And I mean, one guy sort of sticks in my mind about is old Gary Courtney. I mean, Gary is a true and true Cornishman. He'll make anyone laugh. It doesn't matter how sad they are. He'll make them laugh. And I owe quite a bit to Gary, because I was working in Sea Lord's factory at the time, waiting for the fire shield Whitby, and had a bit of a run-in with one of the supervisors or charge hands at the time, and I think I pushed him, and they just concreted a big floor, and of course they put all footprints in it, and I was dismissed immediately out the gate, gone, see you later, never to work at Sea Lords again. But thanks to Gary and a bit of persuasion from him and my dad, and mostly my older brother Michael, I managed to get back through the door, and here I stand today talking to you about my life as a fisherman. Yeah. But, there's always curveballs in it, like a funny story I'll give you is the Shirley G, which Michael purchased. It was an old ex-surface longliner. And no doubt in your family history, because, we all went to sea. Michael, Roger, Peter and Roy. And, you can imagine what that was like, mate.
Family together and brothers, and like for me, it was Dad,
Yeah.
and my two uncles, Chris
Yeah.
and John, and myself. So it's quite a special connection, though, eh?
Oh, yeah. And I can remember the very first trip on the Shirley G going down the back of the spit, and one of the big water pumps blew a bloody great hole in it. And between Michael and the old man, they managed to make a little patch, and we patched her up, and we kept going. But I think me and Roger used to get sacked regularly.
Was that by your father?
No, by the El Capitan. But it hasn't lessened our love for one another. We've had our moments, and and again, Michael's been quite instrumental in getting and helping in job situations and bits and pieces, and he's never left the industry in mind and body. He's still heavily involved. Can't quite say the same about me brother Rog, but it's just a fact of life, and we deal with those things as all families do. And Michael's still very heavily involved in the industry, and it's always got a story or a yarn for me, or what's going on and who's doing this and who's doing that.
I can imagine the Connolly boys sitting around a table.
It is.
Imagine the stories.
Yes, and there's plenty of stories.
We'll probably do a series on that. I know you got plenty of series. This might not be the only podcast, so maybe we'll save some of those. But I think just thinking about your time at sea, is there anything you sort of look back at and go, that was cool, that was interesting, shit, that was scary? Like, there's any, most of us have had frights, or I don't know, you've seen some incredible stuff, on the horizon, or I don't know, dolphins, whales, you've had awesome bags of fish. Is there any sort of, anything you can remember in your significant career at sea that you look back and go, shit, that was cool, or shit, that was scary, or shit, I shouldn't have done that, or anything sort of spring to mind at all?
Oh, well, I suppose the scary thing is the Raymond 5, although she sunk as the amateur challenger in Cook Strait, I'll never forget handing over a watch to a guy. We're coming up from the Brothers, and he was instructed to get Tim up before we got to Jackson's. But he decided that he knew how to get through his Jackson's, but he didn't quite, because we ended up on the other side of the light. And I'll never forget waking up, and the light was flashing on the old wheelhouse of the old Raymond 5, and Tim managed to get her off. No holes, got home. And one of the early trips that I had as skipper, and we'd been down to Kaikoura on another Wing and a Prayer trip that come off to fruition, and we're coming home, come up to the pass, tested the steering, away we go, got there, and she just went hard over to port, and I couldn't do a thing.
That's the toe curling up in the gumboots.
It was, mate. I was leaning. She had a big lever about her height for a head and a stern, and I was leaning on it. It couldn't go any further, and we went up into the bush. The bow was in the bushes, and the chief engineer came up, and he'd run around. He says, "I don't know what's wrong, Pete." He said, "I'll get it going for you." So we'll have a look out the front, Bill. It was Bill Hope, and he goes, "Oh, shit." I said, "You were on the rocks, Billy boy."
And looking at the shags in the tree.
Yeah, we were looking at the shags in the tree. Yeah. Boston Seafire was going round Stevens, and I'm trying to get hold of him. Anyway, Bill managed to pump a whole lot of fuel back, got her off, and came to Nelson, and I thought, we were going to be out for months. We had a couple of scratches about 10 metres long, and it was the same. That boat must have been built like a brick shit house, because I've seen it on the rocks twice. Yeah. There's only water and gestation that got her in the end.
Yeah, and a fair few hokey and
one or two
pocker and that on deck.
Yes, a few of them laying around. As for good things, there's a lot of things, but I think just something recently, a couple of years back, I was steaming down to down south, steaming south, and I could see this thing on the radar, but I just couldn't visually pick it up. Looking, and boom, here was this guy. I could see a little white sail with an orange top. So I called on 16, and I get this guy come back to me, and I says, "What are you up to?" And he says, "Oh, I'm in the round the world single-handed yacht race." I said, "Geez, mate, you're pretty brave." Okay. So I'm having a yarn to him, and he gives me a bit of an intro, and I slow down, let him go across in front of me. And anyway, he said, "Have you got Wi-Fi in your boat?" I go, yeah, mate, I sure have. If I give you a number, could you message my wife? So he gives me the number, messages his wife. I don't reckon it was 40 seconds and I had a reply. So I said, do you want me to get some pictures, mate? Oh, could you? So I steamed after him, banged off a few pictures and sent it to her. So I spent the rest of the trip and my trip off watching him for about 3 trips, because, I mean, he was off New Zealand. He was going to France, so it took more than a couple of weeks.
How far off were you? Like,
Oh, we were, I don't know, we were 120 miles south of Stewart Island. So I put out of a bit of a all-ship sling to everyone to let them know that, there's this little boat bombing around, because his AIS was rubbish.
yeah.
But anyway, he had a tussle all the way to France with a South African lady, and she pipped him at the end, and he got second. But it must have been a hard bugger, because 3 years before he got flipped out south of Australia, and he had a broken leg, back, and he survived. The boat was upside down. Yeah. So yeah, it was quite special to have that contact, and you contact someone on the other side of the world and make their day.
Absolutely.
And I've always been a great believer at if you can help.
Yeah, well, it's what you do, eh? Like you're underwater. I mean, you've got to help. It's the law, but the law's irrelevant. If someone needs a hand, and they're at sea, you just do it for them and their family, really, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we on the Taimania we rescued a yacht up there off Stevens and got the boys in, and someone asked me the other day. It may have been I can't remember if they put it in the paper article, but. These guys had just been up to Auckland, had this 50-foot yacht come down, the rudder fell off Stevens, 45 knots in the west. You know what that's like. And the boys woke me up and said, Pete, there's a mayday going out. These guys are off Stevens Rock. I said, no, it won't be Stevens Rock, we're Stevens Island. So I got up. Anyway, we had to wait to daylight, and it was really interesting. The one guy that knew how to use the rocket throwing device wasn't the deck ends, it was the chief engineer, Tony Curry. Shot it into the wind, not downwind, and got a rope on, and it was really funny. A few nights before, I'd been watching Peter Bake. They'd run the world race, and they were surfing down the big waves. So I called this guy up and I said, listen, mate, I'm not going to tell you how to suck eggs, but if you've got some rope, can you run a couple of big drows out the back of your boat? He goes, oh, yeah. So I did it. We towed him up into Admiralty Bay, and I lined up the wharf, and I said, right, mate, I'm just going to go hard round the port, and I'll biff the ropes off, and hopefully you'll make it. Well, I reckon I just about got him alongside the wharf. And I think the Roaches boys' dad might have been there or someone. They got him and tied him up. Graham was there and they tied him up. And he gave quite a spectacular letter of thanks back to the CEO of Sealords at the time for our seamanship. And there was one comment he said that he was quite taken by, and he said, yeah, thank you. And I said, that's okay, mate. I said, it's just the way of the sea. And he was quite taken by it. And it was a good acknowledgement from him for the crew and for the company, and putting the boat up there to save people's lives. And I mean, that's what you do. I mean,
you do it quite often too, eh? Like I think that's what, for some of our sort of recreational boaties and that listening. I mean, we rescue a lot of recreational boaties every year, particularly summer out here. I remember. Like my father, one of the last years he was running the Gleam, just towing out in the bay there over the summer months. And every other day they were towing someone in that had run out of fuel, mechanical breakdown, the weather came up. It was almost became difficult to actually do your job. So, you think about commercial fishermen across the country, we've probably saved thousands of lives over the years and continue to do that. So when it's hitting the fan, for a 6 metre stabby, it's just another day in the office for your vessel or the likes of the Gleam. So we're definitely done our good deeds over the years, like most fishermen.
Many, and I've done plenty as a recreational fisherman as well, Gardy. So
Well, it's funny that because that's sort of the next thing. I know that you're a commercial fisherman, but you're also a mad keen recreational fisherman. So, what do you like about rec fishing? Do you have any particular target species that you really like catching? Any tips or tricks that we might be able to give some of the rec fishers listening? I don't know. So tell us about your recreational fishing.
Well, I suppose it continued on from what I used to do as a kid. I used to go fishing, and like as you would have growing up in a family, you had a lot of fishing in your family, whereas we had Michael at the time. So to get fish, we had to catch fish, and it was back to the days of going down the creek and catching herrings for bait from a long line, because you couldn't go and buy a packet of pilchards in those days or block of squid. You had to catch your own bait. So, yeah, we had to go down the creek at Gulf Road or anywhere where we could catch herrings and bits and pieces. But, yeah, it's been passionate, and I just found that it's a way for me to relax, before the days of these god-owned bloody cell phones over here on our sides. I could get in the boat, go fishing, and no one could get hold of me, and it was just a peace of mind. And a bit more challenging, trawling's challenging, don't get me wrong, but, going recreational fishing, out in the bay here, I mean, you'll have heard it a million times, and so have I. And I think maybe in the thing I gave to the lady from Stuff, I said, I gave up telling people what I did. If I went to a function or, birthday party or something, people say, oh, what do you do? And I go, I'm a fisherman. Oh, that's why I can't catch any fish. And I said to Marilyn, I'm just going to tell them I'm an airline pilot. I diverged away from saying that I was a fisherman, because I copped it so many times.
Yeah. Which is a shame, and that's changed in the last decade. It's sort of got a bit worse, isn't it? Where we do a lot to support recreational fishermen, as we've talked about, and we'll share any information, anything they need. But we're all competing for the same resource, and fundamentally, I guess we know what we take every year. Recreational don't quite, but that's not a political statement, but we are all in it for one fishery, and we want it to be sustainable for everyone. But so what's your target species? What are you sort of passionate about?
Out in the bay, snapper, because like back in the days, commercial boys were blamed for wiping them out, and if I got $1 for every time I seen that picture of the snapper at the dump, I'd be a rich man. That same picture.
Yeah.
And we won't go there with that, but the fishery has rebuilt beyond anyone's expectations. I mean, and not being derogative to people, but, in the last, I'd say, 10 or 12 years, everyone's catching fish. Whereas before that, it was down to a select few, but now, look, I'm going out on Saturday morning. We're talking about the 24th of May.
Yep. Shouldn't be many snapper around.
There will be. And I mean, all right, we're having to go to 40 metres. Yeah. But the last time I went out, it was just unreal fishing, like you've never seen. And, obviously we've gone away from the basic sinker or, the old mustang curved hook and a bit of squid. Yeah, it's a little bit more techo. We've got the flasher rigs and we've got jigs. I'm passionate about this jig fishing. I really like it because there's no bait left squished around on the bottom of the boat and stinking, or a bit that's got lost, and you go, oh, what's that? And so it's more so I do a lot of jig fishing, and it's very therapeutic. It's just winding it very slow, and I spend a lot of time. I write down a lot of stuff, where I've caught fish, how I've caught fish and stuff like that.
That's years as a commercial fisherman, recording every kilo you catch.
It's dead right.
The habit.
And that's what it's all about. And I think you've seen the increase in the recreational fishing come down that car park on a Saturday, mate. It's unreal. Yeah. Unreal how many people are going out there. Yeah. And I don't think too many people are not catching a feed, So, it's all, I think, as a fisherman, you've got to go out there and think you're going to catch fish. If you go out there thinking, oh, no, the big boats have caught them all, or blah, 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 you're not going to win.
You set the tone for the day, don't you?
You've got to go out there thinking, when you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm going out to catch fish. Yeah. Because if you don't, 9 times out of 10, you won't catch them.
Yeah. Yeah, and the key thing, I guess, one thing I'm guilty of, to be honest, is always just one more. That's what my father used to say when we go out on the Gleam here and down around D'Urville Island and all around the different places, wreck fishing. It was always just one more. So, I was always the last one, first in, last out sort of thing. But it's a bit of a disease, isn't it? So I sort of reflect a bit. You said you knew you were going to go fishing. Yeah. It's sort of in your DNA, eh? And I was a bit like that as well. Of course, it was easier for me because I had the opportunity with the family and all of those things. But you just sort of, it's just who you are, and you feel it, and I don't know. I mean, if you've ever developed a bit of a sixth sense sometimes where you actually know whether it's commercial or recreational, you sort of know where the fish are. And I think part of it is because you spent a lifetime studying the weather, fish movements and tides and all of that stuff, and the moon, all that stuff. So we're probably pretty lucky that we've got an advantage that we know where it is.
Definitely, Darren. It is. You did right about it. I don't know. The other day I went out with a guy and just pulled the boat out of gear, turned the engine off, shot 3 gear over. He said to me, how the hell did you know? I said, just 6 cents, But it was as much good luck as it was good management, Darren.
Yeah. Mix of both, though. You need a bit of good luck and a bit of good management.
Definitely do. Yeah. And it's the same out there on the Rehua. There's an element of luck in it as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Luck and experience and knowledge and competence. So what next for Pete? Look, what's happening? What's the next 5-10 years look like for Pete?
Oh, well, I mean, I'd like to, I finished on the 1st of October at Sealords. Okay. And I hope to help out and mostly do a wee delivery voyage and a few bits and pieces. I'm not very passionate about gardening. I don't play golf. So I don't know. I'm going to have to find a hobby, Darren.
Sounds like fishing probably is going to be your hobby, isn't it?
But you can only do so much of that, mate. So I don't know. Yeah, I know. I'm 66, so I suppose at some stage I will just have to say, well, there's the keys and, go and find something.
You'd look good crocheting. I'd like to do like to get a few photos of you crocheting.
Yeah, well, my mum was really good at that. So
well, there you go. It's in the blood.
It could be in my DNA to do a bit of crocheting. I don't know. I got 2 daughters. One's very mad, passionate, Natasha. She has 2 horses, where the other one's got a horse, but it's called Power. She's got a stock car. So, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so, Dad's commonly known as the B&Z.
There's plenty for Dad to do then.
Oh, yeah, sure. There's plenty going on and bits and pieces. And, but I say, in this little thing, I mean, I didn't get a chance most probably when they gave me did the interview. I mean, I've been fishing the 50 years, but of 47 of them, I've been with the same person and my wife.
Awesome.
So, they say behind every good man or every good fisherman there's a good woman. And, she's a big part of my life and has been,
Absolutely. And put up with a lot.
Oh, shit.
And being a solo mum and a solo this and had to fix the lawnmower and the dishwasher.
Yeah, she's a jack of all trades.
Away. Yeah.
She's a jack of all trades and, mostly only qualified as a hairdresser and a PT. So, you've got to have a good backbone to your own backbone. You've got to have someone at home making sure that the fire's going, the kids are fed, and, life goes on. And, so I think with fishing, and I don't know with you, Darren, but you see that you go out the door and then you come back, and you got to have that integration time, because they're very set in their ways, so you don't tread on their toes. And you make sure
you're the captain of the Rehua. She's the captain of the house.
You got it right, mate. Yep. Happy wife, happy life.
Absolutely.
As they say, yeah.
No, I agree 100% on that. That's a common story. Is you need that decompression. If you've done your time at sea and you've got to make that transition, the swearing stops. The authoritarian approach. You're not the skipper anymore, and you just have to integrate calmly into the family to keep things going. I mean, I'm on my 30th year of being married as well. So, and I agree, it's the same. It's the only thing that got me through was having, the home stuff still continues and the kids are looked after and all that stuff's done. So, and I think most of the people looking at this, and particularly the fishermen, would acknowledge their wife or their partner that without her, the home fire stops, and then it makes it bloody hard to do what we do at sea because it's not enjoyable anymore, and you're worried. So it's definitely a great partnership, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, if the phone's going every second day because something's at home's not right, it impacts on you at sea,
Yeah.
So makes life hard, and there is always curveballs, but you find a way to get around them,
Yeah. So how would you sum up? We'll probably wind up shortly. How would you sum up your career time or life as a fisherman? Like, why, give us a pitch. What's the advantage? Why would someone that's listening to this that doesn't, they don't know what they're going to do, they're a bit lost, or they're looking for something, why would they come into our industry, Pete?
Well, we touched on it, Darren. I mean, you come to an industry where you come to work, you're fed, you're housed, and you just have to do the work. So you come and say if you come on the Rehua and you do 6 weeks at sea, you got 6 weeks off, give or take, depending on the trips. It's very structured, so basically when you're going and when you're coming home. The money is reasonably good. So if you, like we touched on it, if you've got the mindset to save or prioritise getting something, be it a car or striving to get a house or whatever, as long as you've got a focus. And the industry, there's lots of stuff going on now for young people in the industry. The training to get them through, to get them tickets, to further them. And I always say to the young guys, I don't care if you leave the Rehua and all you got is a forklift driver's licence. You've got to leave here with something. Yeah. And it's all about having a future and a goal to go forward. And I spend quite a bit of time with the young kids and talk to them, because I think they all think that I just walked in the door and I was a skipper. I says, no, it didn't work that way.
Got to earn your stripes.
You've got to earn your stripes. So, I mean, I think, as you well as I do know, Darren, the industry's always had a bit of a bad name for the roughy-tufty fishermen and, the alcohol and drugs, which is everywhere in this world today. But I think we're trying to clean that perception up with the likes of the PAs and the people at Sea Lords and Tallies and Sanfords, all of them. We're just trying to nurture these kids and get them through that sort of adolescent years in the fishing, they always want to go and have a couple of vinos and bits and pieces. But it is a very safe industry. We have taken leaps and bounds from the days of jumping off the wharf and all going out there with the matchsticks in our eyes to stay awake and all that sort of stuff. It has changed, Dan. You know that as well as I do. You have a badge on your chest, guard safety. Yeah. And I mean, as much as I used to argue with you about some of the things in health and safety, I do accept and have been at the forefront of making sure that I bring the boat home with the same amount of people I went out with, and I strive to bring it home full. And they're my goals. And it makes nothing better for me to see someone that I might have nurtured along from being just a young guy coming through the factory to get his deckhand's ticket, and he's on the deck and he may be the next bosun or the second mate, or same with young girl might have come along and she's now, the QC or striving to be a supervisor. It gives you a bit of heart that you've invested in the industry.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think that's been bloody great, and I think Pete will probably do more because there's a lot of stories that probably need to be told, and obviously be good at some stage to probably get some of the other brothers involved as well, because it's the family, really, the family dynamic. So. Look, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, please subscribe. I have had a fair bit of feedback in the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks from a lot of, I guess, guys of sort of my age, guys and girls, where they don't know how to subscribe. So it's really important at first you go and set yourself up a YouTube account, and then make sure you're logged in, and that subscribe button will activate. If you can't figure it out, please ask your kids or your grandkids, because we need you to subscribe so we can keep doing these things. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.